This report coming out of North Carolina and what they did with the tax code really shows you where the Republican priorities lie. So there's a tax cut called the Earned Income Tax Credit that applies to poor and middle class families, and they have the federal version of that, but then also there's separate state versions as well that kind of add on to the federal version. And in order to get that tax cut, it's in North Carolina, you need to make about $50,000 a year or less. Well, the GOP legislature and governor just did three things to change that. First, they limited the tax credit. So now instead of getting 5% back, you only get 4.5% back. Then they raised the sales tax in the state, which is, again, a regressive tax, so it hits the poor and the middle class more than it hits the rich. And then they changed the two-tiered income tax brackets in North Carolina and made it one tier, so now it's just a flat tax, which also, again, cuts taxes for the rich and raises it on the poor and the middle class. So now the end result of all this, a person who earns $1 million per year will get roughly a $10,000 tax cut. And the bottom 80% will see their taxes rise. So I want to actually read you a quote from this here. The richest 1% of Tar Heels already pay 6.5% of their income in combined sales and income taxes at the state level, while the lower 80% of earners pay between 9% and 10% combined, and they just made that disparity even worse now. So we already have a system in North Carolina that was regressive. The poor and the middle class pay 10% of their income in taxes. The rich only pay 6.5%. And now they made that even worse. So the main point here is that when Republicans talk about cutting taxes, they are not talking about you. And this isn't the only example. This is just the most recent example. We've covered stories like this. This one is from North Carolina. We've done ones, I believe, from Kansas as well, and a few other red states, where every time the Republicans gain control of the legislature and you get a Republican governor, they always do the same thing. They find sneaky ways to sell the idea of changing the tax code that makes people think, well, we're going to get a tax cut, but they don't get a tax cut. It's only the rich who get a tax cut, and the poor and the middle class have their taxes raised. Now, understand, this is Republicans across the board. This is at your local level, at your state level, and more than anywhere else, at the federal level. See, one of the things I gathered from talking to Republicans, I have some Republicans in my family that, I've had conversations with them, uncles and whatnot, where you gather from them that the reason why they are Republicans is that they think, simply put, the Republicans want them to have more money in their pocket. That's it. That's their view of politics. Republicans want me to have more money in my pocket. Democrats don't, so I'm going to vote for the Republicans. And they've even told me, oh yeah, Kyle, sure, you'll be a left-winger, you'll be a Democrat until, you start making money, and then you'll realize I got to vote for these guys and get my taxes cut. And these are people, by the way, who made $50,000 a year, $55,000 a year. Okay, dude. Don't take my word for it. Look at the actual independent analyses on this issue. Every single Republican president since Ronald Reagan has wanted to raise taxes on people making $100,000 or less. And it depends on the candidate. So it could be anywhere from $100,000 and less that they want to raise it, or $250,000 and less that they want to raise your taxes. The only people that Republicans want to cut taxes for are the people who make over $250,000. So it's just not true. I mean, look, even the kindest Republicans would want to cut taxes for only the top 10% or maybe 15% at most. Okay, they want to raise taxes on the rest of us. But most Republicans, they only want to cut taxes on the top 1% or 2%, and they want to raise taxes on the 98% or the 99% of us. Now, I'm no genius at math, but I can do basic deductions. And what I'm realizing here is the Democrats need to steal the message that these guys aren't the party of tax cuts. We are the party of tax cuts. And I've always said on this show, if you go back, you can listen to any podcast you want, okay? I have been consistent in saying, if you make less than $100,000, or probably even less than $200,000, or even $250,000, I want to cut your taxes. I don't think you should have to pay a tremendous amount of money and meanwhile, you're getting your services cut left and right, whether it's unemployment benefits when you fall on hard times, or food stamps, or Social Security, or any of these other things that they're trying to cut. I want to cut your taxes. The Democrats want to cut your taxes if you make, less than 250 grand, 100 grand, depending on the Democrat. But the people who should be paying more are the billionaires, are the multimillionaires. Why is it that Mitt Romney, of all people, who made over $20 million, only paid 14% in taxes? Meanwhile, a construction worker who made 65 grand, he was paying 20% in taxes. That doesn't make sense. That's a regressive tax system. And it's because the capital gains tax, which is when you make money through investments, that rate is lower than the income tax. That's crazy, man. So if you sit on your ass and your money makes money, we should tax that less than somebody who actually has to get up in the morning and actually make shit and do shit? That's crazy. But see, this is my point here. The Republicans, they're not on your side. It's the Democrats who are the party of tax cuts for the majority. And it's time that we steal their marketing trick and we really message it.